Today's daf is daf Lamas Beis, Sim to Masech to Megilah. Tomorrow we begin Masech to Megilah. Okay, we're up to the very top of the page, and here the Gemara gives us some laws about the Torah itself, reading the Torah, and how we present ourselves, and how you're supposed to hold on to the Torah, and so on. Talabam we learned. So, Paiseach, you unfurl the Torah, you open up the Torah, you look as to where you are going to read. Everyone holding up to look at where you start. Some people have a minute, you look where you start the Aliyah and where you complete the Aliyah. Then Goil, you roll up the Torah, Umevarich, and then you make a bracha. Then V'choizer Upaseach, then you open the Torah up, you unfurl the Torah, and you begin reading. Divrei Rameh, which in fact is what we do today. Rabbi Yehuda says, Paiseach, you open the Torah, V'roya, you look at the Aliyah, and you don't have to close it, Umevarich, and you can make the bracha, and V'koirei, and you read. And we'll come back to that in a minute. My time with the Rameh, what's Rameh is for? Kedu'ula, like Ula said, Amarula, B'pnei Amru, why do we say that HaKoirei b'Torah lo yisayeh l'meturgim? The one who reads the Torah shouldn't in any way give any support to the person who's translating it. The person translating should be on his own solo without the assistance of the Balkairei. Because people, not everyone used to get an Aliyah, only people knew how to read in those days. So therefore, Kedei Shalayemru Targum Kosav, people shouldn't be under the misapprehension that the Targum itself is written in the Torah, the Al-Qaeda is reading it from the Torah. And not everybody goes and gets an Aliyah, and everybody will know. Here too, when it comes to brachas, we don't want people to assume that the brachas are written in the Torah, so therefore close the Torah before you make the brachas. Same logic. That's Rabbi Yehuda says, Targum, Targum, you make a mistake, the Targum written in the Torah, because Targum is translating the words of the Torah, maybe it's recorded in the Torah. But brachas, brachas, nobody's going to make that mistake, that the brachas are recorded in the Torah. So yet, how come today our meaning is that we roll up the Torah? So the way Tosfos and others learn is that, or other Rishonim learn is, that not Rabbi Yehuda is saying that you don't. Rabbi Yehuda is saying that b'diavad, if you left the Torah open, is good enough. But everyone is Megilah Daf, it's better to roll up the Sefer Torah and close it. And because after cover of the Torah, you make the brachas, then you open it up. Now, interesting, Rabbi Yosef Salvechi from YU, he paskins, I think Pliny Arab, if I remember correctly, I saw it. He paskins that when you make the bracha, you have to hold on the amud, and he says that throughout the entire aliyah, you have to hold on to the amud, because otherwise, there's no connection between you and the Torah. You're not even yet to your aliyah. And they were using that to talk about when they last year made the rule during COVID that you're not allowed to, you have to be a mile away from a Sefer Torah, you're not allowed to touch a Sefer Torah, whether you're allowed to make a bracha. Because Yeshua said that's part of the mitzvah. The bracha is the connection between you and the Torah, is actually holding on to the Eitz Chaim. Brings a right from the Rambam of Lashon and so on. Anyway, let's continue. Amar Rab Zeir said, Amar Rab Master. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, Paiseach v'roya umevarach v'koirei. You open it up, you look, and you make a bracha, and you read v'leim. Why don't we just say halacha Rabbi Yehuda, like the same question we had yesterday, and we answer the same answer. Should other people swap the names around? He didn't want anyone to make any mistakes, so he clearly spelled out what the halacha is. Again, we're saying that the halacha is b'diavad. That b'diavad, he goes Torah is good enough. Amar Rab Zeir said, Amar Rab Master. Halacha is. He said in the Master that luchos and bimas ain't behem b'shum kedusha. There's no kedusha. Rashi says, interesting. You know, you very seldom find Rashi saying this because the only one that opened up the Gemara to the whole world was Rashi. Rashi says, "Lo yadaiti b'hem." I don't know what it is, and he says other people say that this is something made for other svarim that are not written like a Sefer Torah. But the Rabbeinu Chanal learns over here that Tosfos brings the name of the Aruch, that luchos means the parts of the Sefer Torah, not the Sefer Torah itself, but it means the margin, the top of the page between. And if it got cut off from a Sefer Torah, it doesn't really have the same kedusha as the Sefer Torah itself. Yeah, others say it means that the place they used to dedicate a place where they used to put the Torah on, after the reading. and Luchas Krim Midei Chaim. So it says over here, there's no kedusha. They don't have the kedusha if it's the part they used to place a sefer Torah. But she also writes they don't have the kedusha of a sefer Torah, but they have the kedusha of a Beis HaKnesses, which means with the money you can only buy something which is even holier. Says the but Amar Shvatya, Amar Rabbi Yechon, Goyel sefer Torah. If you're going to roll up a sefer Torah, you have to make sure. And not everybody is aware of this. You have to make sure that when you roll up a sefer Torah, that right in the middle there should be the seam. It should be on the seam. Why should it be on the seam? So the Rif says the reason is so that it shouldn't rip. If you tighten it and it's not on the seam, it could rip. And Rashi says because there it's easier to actually make it tighter. If somebody rolls up a sefer Torah, many different pshatim that are showing him how to understand this. Rashi learns you're rolling, let's say, from one part of the Torah to another part of the Torah on your own, and there's nobody there to help you. So very odd case because there are people in the shul and yet nobody's there bothering to help you. So what do? How do you roll up on your own? You have to sit down and place it on your thigh, and you're rolling it. So then that you should roll. In other words, you have your left side, let's say, is closer to you, and the right side is further from you. Roll from the outside one, towards, roll the outside Eitz Chaim, bring it towards yourself, and you keep on doing that. That's how you roll the Sefer Torah if you want to forward it to another spot. Because if you're going to roll from the inside going out, you can drop Chas v'Shalom the outside one and fall down. So that's how Rashi learns is talking about it here. One of the Rishonim learned the pshat is that when you put the strap, I'll tell you a second. Ukashu mahatkoi, and when you finish doing the glue, and now you want to tighten it, is then mahatkim b'befnim. Then once you already finished rolling up, you tighten it. Use the inside one, let's say left hand there, and move it towards the outside. And don't close it from the outside. Stretching hands out to the outside and try closing it, because now you're this is like they said at the end of the Torah, and now you're blocking the words. And part of the hakva is that everyone should be able to see the words. So when you're at the end trying to tighten the Torah, you use your left hand to tighten and not move and not take your left hand to try to go to the right side to tighten, because then you're blocking the words and you're obstructing the view of the people. And people say, everyone has to be able to see the words of the Torah. So other learn pshat here is talking about the gartel around the Sefer Torah. That when you tie the gartel around Sefer Torah, you should not put it on the back of the Sefer Torah, but you should put it on the front of Sefer Torah. So that because otherwise, when you put it on the bima later to read the Torah, you might have to put Sefer Torah on its face in order to be able to untie the knot, and that's not respectful. If 10 people read the Torah, what do you mean 10 people read the Torah? There's only 7 people that get aliyahs in the Torah, not 10, but you need 10 for a minyan. So I said, because you need 10 for a minyan, so we refer to it as asara kara b'Torah. But this can be used as a proof. We once discussed, based on a thesis in Sukkot and based over the Shul Alexandria, whether there's a chiyuv for every person to hear the Torah, and when this kriya is taking place in Shul, it's as if every person is reading the Torah, or is a chiyuv on the Shul. Every minyan has to have a kriya sefer Torah, but it's not devolved onto each individual. By saying that asara shekaru b'Torah sounds like each one is as if they read the Torah, because everyone has to read the Torah, and when somebody gets an aliyah, he's being mighty everyone else in Shul. That's what the expression here, so shekaru b'Torah sounds like. Hagodol, he says it, who should do the gelula? Hagodol shebehem goyel sefer Torah. It is the most chashuv position. So the godol is the one who does gelula. It sounds from the Gemara here that somebody who had an aliyah is the one, and dafke the godol of them should be the one who should be getting gelila or gelula. And hagoyel noitzes charkulan, the one who's goyel takes a schar for everybody. Because that is the chashva thing, giving cover to the Sefer Torah. Today the meaning is the Shalom says that's not the person who had aliyah, it could be anybody. And in those, the Shulchan Aruch says that today I'm making a little bit different. But in those days, Galil and Hagba were one and the same person. The person that Hagba is one of the Galila. Today we have two different people doing it, and there's a discussion. So who is the one when the Gemara says Hagoyel Shebehem, Goyel Sefer Torah? Who is the one that we're talking about? And Dafka today, the person that gets Hagba, okay, but the person that gets Galila could be a child under Bar Mitzvah, right? We give them Galila, and it's like Godel Shebehem Goyel Sefer Torah. So interesting. The meaning of Lubavitch is that the person who does Hagba also then puts the Sefer Torah on the bima and rolls it and sits down. So, and the reason for that is because the Hagba is the one that does the Galila. Rolling the Torah is the Galila, not the tying it up, it's rolling it. So therefore, we roll it on the bima and then we sit down. So the Hagba and the Galila is the same person, and that's the Godel Sheben. Then the kid can do the rest. In the Midrash Ashkenaz, where the one person picks it up, he sits down in the chair, another person comes along and does the total glula. So the guy who gets Hagba doesn't do any glula at all whatsoever. If anything, he unfurls the tail, not he rolls it. He unfurls it before he picks it up. So then we have to wonder in halacha, what changed? How is it that, so today, in meaning Ashkenaz, the goyel is not the one who gets Hagba, because he doesn't do any glula. It's the one who does the glula. So how did it change? And it became that a cotton, even though the Mishnah writes clearly that, today the meaning became, it doesn't explain how, why. In fact, if you changed everything and the goyel today is there's only one goyel today, what happened? How can we give it to a cotton when the Gemara says, Davka, the Godel Shebehem should get it? Then there's a discussion if the person who hands, in fact, it says in Shulchan that the one who gets Hagba pays the most money for that particular privilege. And then there's a discussion, what about the person who hands the gartel to the person who's doing the glula, which might be the person doing the Hagba or somebody else? Is that considered also part of the mitzvah and so on? And the Gemara concludes, the one who rose gets a schar for everybody. Says the Gemara. Gemara will wonder what that means. The one who does glula gets a schar for everybody. So the Gemara schar kula. After what? He takes away the schar from everybody else. What for? Why? His schar is equal to all the aliyahs in aggregate. Makes him compounds the question: what happened today? How is it that we can give galila to a cotton? Okay, so went further. Mentioning different things of Shvati said and so another thing that he mentioned was that he said was, how do you know how do you know that we could use and work on a baskel, and we don't say that you're being menachish, that you're doing some kind of witchcraft or something like that, that you're allowed. A baskel is like an echo, a voice. It's lower than Ruach HaKodesh, and we'll have it tasted in a few places. And what do you call it? And the question is, if it gives instructions, how do you know that you can follow it? It says in the pasuk, if you hear something behind you, lame with the following. It says the pasuk, this is the way that you should follow. You should follow it and don't deviate. Bahani mili. When is that said? In the city, you hear the voice of a male, but the kol itza bedabra. If you're out in the wilderness, the only time in the wilderness that we can listen to baskel is if it's a voice that's not common to hear there. You usually don't hear a woman solo in the wilderness. A woman would not travel on her own in the wilderness. A man would. So in the wilderness, you have to hear the voice of a woman. Then we say, oh, it's not a human voice. Then it's a baskel. But in the town, man or woman would make a difference. So therefore we say there it's a male voice that the baskel comes across. There's no point in being different than a female voice, because there's males and females strolling in the city. But the expression has to be, the sound has to be with the person, where the voice repeats itself. Either says hin, hin, yes, yes. No, no. So if it only says it once, it's not a baskel, because it has to be like imperative, giving you a ruling or giving you instruction. So it has to be said like an instruction, a repetition of either yes or no. Doesn't want further. Anybody who reads anybody reads without the correct, as we say, cantellations, trop. And remember, trop comes from Sinai. Vishoina, Now, so here the Gemara is going to disparage somebody who does not know how to read Trop. And that is why you go sometimes to shuls and the Balkaida reads and everybody attacks him if you forget about it, if he makes a mistake in the verbalization of a word, but the enunciation of a word, but if he says the wrong Trop, he gets attacked. But the halacha is not like that. Then it says, V'shoine b'lei zimra. If somebody learns without a sing-song fashion, even though Doran Melch said, it's meters hayeli b'chokecha, it's like a song, he was attacked for it. But and Taisa explains very interesting. Everything was learned in those days, Torah Shabbat Peh. Right? Everything was Torah Shabbat Peh. You couldn't write it down, you had to learn a Torah Shabbat Peh. And I already told you what the Ran said a few weeks ago, beautiful pshat, why oral Torah had to remain Baal Peh. The Ran said because the oral Torah had to be explained. And if it's Baal Peh, then you definitely need a teacher. And therefore they're going to explain to you the meaning behind it. And that's why oral Torah has to be dafka Baal Peh. And written Torah has to be dafka B'Ksav because you have to see how it's spelled out. Every letter is important. So Taisa says, because they learned it by heart, how did they memorize all this? So he says they did it in a sing-song fashion. If they learned it in a song, that's how they remembered it much longer. And Taisa says, if you learn things in the method of a song, and they do that actually. A lot of time we teach things to young kids to memorize Mishnah, they really do it in a song fashion. When I was in yeshiva, a little kid learning Tanakh and let's say Nevi'im, the way our Rebbe used to teach the Nevi'im, especially one particular Rebbe, he sang the whole thing. It was more like a nusach than a song, but it was amazing, and that's how we remembered. You remember the words, you remembered everything because of the song. So Taisa says that's why they used to learn with a song. So Gemara says if you learn without singing, you're not going to remember. Is all of our Kasavayim regarding these people who are learning, but they're not doing it the right way, or they're reading the Torah and not reading correctly. The pasuk says, I gave them laws, but like David, they're not too good. And then the Mishpatim won't remain with them because they're not singing or everything else where you're supposed to. Maskal Abayi said to him, because they don't know how to sing properly, that's it, the laws don't count at all, it's not fair. Abayi says, I believe that this pasuk, is not referring to somebody who doesn't sing when he learns, or somebody doesn't do the trop properly when he or trop at all when he reads the Torah. Rather, it's referring to Shnei Talmidei Chachamim. If you have two Talmidei Chachamim living in the same neighborhood, two Talmidei Chachamim living in the same neighborhood, and they're not, good to each other in halacha, and they don't discuss halacha. Regarding them, the pasuk refers and says, "V'gam ani nosati lehem chukim lo tovim." I gave the laws which are no good. U'mishpatim lo yichyu behem, and the mishpatim will not live by them. That's what it's referring to. Obviously, you should do the trap everything else, but it's not. But if you didn't, doesn't mean that the mishpatim lo yichyu behem. Says him further. Amar Raparnich said, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol ha'oiches Sefer Torah Adam. Anybody who holds on to Sefer Torah with his hands, not with a cloth or something. We had the Gemara Shabbos there, all the laws were there, the Yud Ches Davar from Beis Shammai. If you hold it on to Sefer Torah with your hands, Arum, naked means bare hands. Nikver Adam. If let's say a Sefer Torah, let's say you're rolling it and it's a bit misplaced, you take your talis and you pull the parchment down. You're not supposed to use your hands. The only time you're allowed to use your hands if it's necessary for the Torah itself. Let's say you're sewing together a piece of parchment or something like that, or you're writing it or editing it. Is Adam Nikver Adam? You'll be buried naked. Says the Gemara, Adam Salkadata, because you held on a Sefer Torah with your bare hands, you'll be buried without tachrichim. All your mitzvahs all taken away from you. Says the Gemara, because he held on and saved the bare hand, you lose all your mitzvahs. Abayi says, you're missing out that mitzvah. Which is that mitzvah? Rashi doesn't explain. So it means, let's say the mitzvah of the Kriya he just did. The Rebbe in the scene on Masechta Megilah in Parsha Chukas, I think Chelik Chavav, tries to explain what the Gemara is thinking over here. What are the 3 half minutes? First, we thought he gets buried naked. Why would you think that? Then we say he loses all of his mitzvahs, and then we say he loses that particular mitzvah he was doing right now. Taisa says he's losing other mitzvahs he's doing at the same time. But what exactly is the discussion there? So the Rebbe explains why is it so important to hold on the Sefer Torah with a talus, let's say, not with your hands directly. What is it all about? And there's different ways of understanding. One is it's disrespectful to the Torah, obviously, if you're touching it with your bare hands. So is it like there's the Torah and then there's another thing called respect? And what is it? This is not the Torah itself. This is like something external to the Torah. Apart from the Torah itself, the words, the content, and so on and so forth, there's also the way you deal with the Torah, you treat the Torah. So it's like a lavush, a garment, something external to the Torah. And therefore the punishment has to be accordingly. And accordingly is that something that's not your body, something external to your body, your clothes. When a person passes away, he'll be buried without clothes. That's what the Gemara thought in the beginning. The Gemara says, no, this is much more than just something external to the Torah. You're talking about the covet of the Torah itself. So therefore, we're talking about the covet of Torah itself. Just like the relationship between mitzvahs and Torah. You learn Torah in order to do mitzvahs. So mitzvahs is not something that's totally independent of Torah. It's actually an outgrowth of Torah. And because it's an outgrowth of Torah, same thing here. Covet at Torah is like an outgrowth of Torah. That is the Torah, and there's the covet, which is part of the Torah. It's an outgrowth of it. So therefore, if you don't have covet for the Torah, you have no covet for the outgrowth of Torah. Therefore, the outgrowth of Torah, which is mitzvahs, you lose. All your mitzvahs, you lose. And the Gemara says it's even deeper than that. It's not the outgrowth of Torah. This is part and parcel of Torah. That the covet of Torah is an integral part of the Torah itself. So therefore, the mitzvah that you were doing at the time of the Torah, you lose because them holding on the Torah without the due respect is not sort of an outgrowth of the Torah. This is what you're doing. This is the Torah itself. The reading of the Torah, and part of it is to do it with covet. You didn't do it with covet, then you didn't read the Torah. So therefore, below oisa mitzvah. That's a discussion thinking about how far do we take the idea of covet Torah? Is it something external to the Torah? Is it something like an outgrowth of the Torah itself, or is it that is what the Torah is all about? Torah is part of the Torah is to have covet for the Torah, and therefore below oisa mitzvah. Rabbi explains it beautifully there. Says he more further. Rabbi Yanai said. Rabbi Yanai said, by the way, Taisus says a very nice thing. Taisus concludes, but if you did it right, our Gemara doesn't talk about the flip side if you did it right. But if you held the Torah, let's say, with a gartel to touch the Torah, or you held it with some kind of, with a talent, say, then the bracha will be that oirech yamim b'yamina, that you'll have longevity. And bismoila oishiva covered on your left side, you will have plenty of wealth. Rabbi Yanai, interesting, the son of Rabbi Yanai Saba, Mashmeid Rabbi Yanai Rabba, the name of Rabbi Yanai Rabba. So this is a place everybody called Rabbi Yanai. So you have like this Friday world, you have Rabbi Yanai Senior, Rabbi Yanai Junior, and you have that here, and the name of Rabbi Yanai Rabba. Whether Rabbi Yanai Rabba is relative of his or not, it's not clear. He says, "Mutiv tigol hamid pachas ba'al yigol sefer Torah." You should wrap the thing around the Torah, not wrap the Torah around the God. Don't take the Torah and furl it into its whatever it is. You should take whatever you're going to wrap around the Torah and take it around the Torah and wrap it around the Torah. Again, it's not covered for the Torah that this thing is lying there, and then you take the Torah and you roll it in to fit into this particular thing. The other way around. That the Torah is there, and you take whatever else you're using, and that is secondary to Torah, and use that to wrap around the Torah. Then the Gemara concludes. Vayidaber Moshe es moed Hashem b'nei Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke the employment of Hashem to the Eden. Mitzvasan she'koyin oisa kol echad ve'echad bizmana. You should read the Torah every single Yom Tov in his day. So Tanabam the Baraisa, and we already had this as well. Moshe Tikkun. Lahem li Yisrael Moshe Rabbeinu Institute. We're going to finish another Masechta. She is shoylin v'dorshin b'inyonis shel yom hilchas Pesach b'Pesach, hilchas atzeres b'atzeres, and hilchas Chag b'Chag. He made a special takana that shoylin v'dorshin, the laws of Pesach on Pesach, the laws of Shavuos on Shavuos, the laws of Sukkot on Sukkot. Now, how is this compatible with what we learned just a few days ago? Rav Shimon Gamliel says 2 weeks before Pesach. You ask, and the Chacham say 4 weeks, and we had a whole discussion about Parsha Shkolim, why we do then, how it fits Rav Shimon Gamliel. And here Moshe Rabbeinu said you do it on the day. So Tosfos of Dalet said that you're right, both are correct. You start 30 days before, but you repeat it again on the day. But others say, here he says Shoylin v'Dorshin. There, according to many, the Girsa is just Shoylin. In other words, if somebody asks you a question in the middle of the year about Sukkot, you say, "Look, sorry, my head is not into right now. I'm not compelled to answer you if I'm not in that subject." But if somebody comes to you 30 days before and asks you a question about the particular Yom Tov, then Shailin, so it's an appropriate question and you need to answer. If you're a Rav or a Shiva, you need to answer. So Shailin, what Moshe Rabbeinu came along and said, not just Shailin, but Darshan. You have to now be proactive and you have to give everybody a set of rules. And that is on the days itself proper. By 30 days before, there's a big machlekes in the Achreinim, Shulchan Aruch, test whether it also applies to Shavuos. Pesach, we know there's a swamp of the Yom. You swamp with all the different halachas. It's a whole Shulchan Aruch on it. Even Sukkot, there's plenty of rules on Sukkot. But Shavuos, what rules are there on Shavuos? So when it comes to 30 days before, there are many who hold that it doesn't apply to Shavuos. Questionable whether it applies to Sukkot, because it always talks about Pesach. Here, when it comes to in Yonis Shel Yom, he adds Hilchas Atzeres B'Atzeres. So maybe that's really Moshe Rabbeinu's chiddush more than the other ones. Not so much on Pesach, let's say, it's mainly Shavuos, because you haven't talked 30 days before, and especially according to those sukkahs, also you don't have to do 30 days before, it's only Pesach, then that's his chiddush, that you have to do it on the day of Sukkot as well. So Hadna Loch B'nei Ir, Slikum is at the Megilah, you're all making a seam, so you should say the Hadna Loch at the end of the Masechta. Okay. Anyway, we finish Megillah. We have now 2 more Masechtas. It'll take us a month to finish each one approximately. And we finished the last one about a week before Pesach, which is perfect for all those who are B'chayrim. You'll have a Masechta for Tainas B'chayrim to say. Okay, tomorrow we begin Moed Katan, which is a whole new subject. And we're still doing Moed. Okay, everyone have a good day.